So the first pattern that I did was the Arabesque tile pattern, and this originated from the Middle East and was heavily influenced by the Islamic religion. In this pattern, elements of curved lines were seen consistently, and they were usually layered with abstract forms of leaves or vines. In my first design, I followed a monochromatic color palette because I wanted to give myself the challenge of building up hierarchy through the use of different shades of the same color. I used hierarchy by making the light constantly overpower the dark. I also made the background follow the diamond shape from the original pattern because I wanted to include the geometrical combination with the organic elements together. I feel this I feel this I feel as if this background also unified the overall design together and brought the blues to have a uniform look. In the second design, I followed a more contrasting palette. I chose to do pastels because that was the complete opposite of palettes that I usually saw when I was deciding on which arabesque pattern to do. I expanded the iteration and added a tilt to it so the spiral rhythm came out a bit more. And to fill up the negative space, I included the outlines of leaves from the original design because without this, I felt as if the design lacked variety and was being swallowed up by the black background. In the third design, I expanded the iteration and centered it in the middle of the frame. The color palette was actually inspired by colors I saw on a butterfly, and they are so contrasting that I believe that they are not colors one tends to see in designs, mostly because they can be overwhelming to the eye. Symmetry played a big part in all three designs, but it came out the most here by the golden leading lines through the center of the frame, which brought out the negative space inside the blue to be positive space on the left in the purple outlines. Line weights also varied throughout the design. This was a decision I followed through with because it brought out the colors more than when the parts were all completely filled. My next pattern that I did was the Art Deco pattern, and this came about in the late 1920s in Paris, France, then gradually moved to the US. The movement was an enhancement from the Art Nouveau movement. It was just an upgrade, basically. When I took my iterations and put it into the 5x5 frame, I realized that it had rhythm on the inside but not on the outside. So I added in the leading lines from the original pattern to get the design of feeling of spiraling outward. There's also rhythm where the color and variety line weights bring the eye towards the center of the design. And yes. In the second design, I had centered it and I used high amounts of symmetry, which flowed throughout the frame. The symmetry allowed for a balance that was enhanced. I also included the leading lines from the original pattern as well to give the design more flow. The color usage I worked the most in this design because it gave me the opportunity to have variety and create an asymmetrical look on the inside of the orange outline by varying if I wanted to invert or fully outline a certain color. The neon colors that you see right now also challenged me to find a background that would not make them look super contrasted where it would be hard to where it looked like it was being overpowered, but so it was appealing to the eye. And this dark blue background really did that. In the third design, I was actually inspired by the neutral tones I saw when I was trying to find an Art Deco pattern. The iteration I used was expanded to the point where it cut off, but I decided to do this to create the illusion of the design always expanding and growing. Overall, like it was seen in the previous two designs, balance and symmetry was largely used. The original pattern is so symmetrical already that I tried to create asymmetry and hierarchy by the varying line weights. There's also balance of which shades of color I used from the palette. So I didn't use one color more than the other. I tried to keep them all balanced and use each color at least once in the whole entire overall design. The next pattern I did was the traditional Russian pattern. These obviously originated from Russia, and they tended to have floral designs or organic designs with colors that were reds, oranges, yellows, and they tended to be quite bold. In the first design, I mainly focused on using the color palette to bring the eye to the flower piece in the center. That was my main focal point. The design followed a spiral-like rhythm, and I showed that by including the circular background, but overlaying it with various shades of gray and tilting it. This created the illusion of zooming into the center of the frame and overall design. The color palette was also a muted down version of the original bright colors we saw at first. In the second design, I incorporated the leading lines from the vines in the original pattern to create the spiral. And then with the split background, I used, instead of a full-on black background, enhanced all the colors more than when it was with the black background, because with the black background, it felt as if the dark blue shades we see in the leaves or petal-like forms, they were muted down and didn't have that contrast that you see with the gray split. And it created a more stable balance to the design. I also played around with line weight by increasing it where the focus is mostly on and decreasing it in the little details, but not to the point where they faded away. Finally, in the third design, I also followed a circular background, but it was stationed and not tilted. The colors in the palette were more muted and brought out a calming element. I used the colors again here to bring the focal point to this purple centerpiece. I connected the centerpiece to the green petal-like shapes by filling in the flower form inside the light purple outline green. Balance came to use here by mainly filling in the shapes and having the same line weight to the parts of the design that were not filled in. And then these were my 3 favorite designs.